Yeah, baby. Another show in the books. Time now to let our hair down. Time now for the MMA After Hour. Time to answer some questions. What do we got? Any good questions today? Or were they ho-hum?
First, I want to read a comment.
Okay.
After Rick's picks, I got a comment from Isaac Caldani, who said, New York Rick is pronouncing these names like a high school substitute teacher. Good job, though, homie. And he's not incorrect. It harkened back to Key and Peele's infamous Jay Quellen Aaron sketch.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You got to find it. Jay Quellen and Aaron. That's your homework.
Did you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm yesterday?
I did. Incredible.
Was it
Love
incredible?
that.
I taped it. I haven't watched it yet.
Just a really good episode, and good to have Larry David back. And everybody else on Curb, Jeff and
they're all back. The gang is
Leon,
back.
the greatest. I mean, Leon is just...
You know what? Leon was one of my least favorite characters in the history of that show. Leon, I was not a fan of. I always felt like it was a forced storyline. Didn't love it. I was a bigger fan of the early Curb days, not so much the back end days. That's why I'm kind of a little bit weird about this return. Like, did I want it?
Leon is critical and brings the fire on this episode.
All right.
Oh, I can't believe
to hear that he's still a part of it.
Oh my God. Leon is JB Smoove for the win.
Shout out, by the way, to the great Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who announced that she is battling breast cancer. All kinds of depressing news.
So what a bad week it's been.
Yeah.
Let's try and move past it. Let's take our mind off it with some MMA.
Okay.
I don't know this. Maybe you know this. Eric J. Balut is asking, do you have any insight if and when and where the new Conor Q&A will be aired? Do we know if this is ever going to video?
I'm sure at some point it's going to pop up somewhere. Although the thing with these things is that they're somewhat, it's
supposed to be intimate for the crowd.
Well, not only that, it's like timely. I mean, like next week, it's not as relevant once the Kevin Lee versus Tony Ferguson fight happens, right?
I mean, the leak PT Carroll is sending out all the info already.
Yeah, but I thought that people would, record it. I mean, maybe they were very strict about that sort of thing. So I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day. If I'm being...
I'll say this. I think there's something to watching a video interview. There's something to seeing the actual interaction
You don't
beyond...
have to tell me about that, right?
The writing. So even if it comes out, I think there'll be an audience for it, but who knows? Sorry, Eric, we don't have any more insight into that, but...
No. But it was good to hear him speak. And what timing for UFC 216, right?
Yes. Lupton Pittman. Do you think the UFC put Lee... and Ferguson as the main event solely to start a potential promotional push for the unification bout with McGregor? Sorry,
I do not. I have come to the conclusion that they put it in that spot for two reasons. A, they were promised that spot initially, and B, there is a lot more buzz, I think, for that particular fight than there is for the DJ Borg fight.
I think it's a no-brainer, no doubt about it.
I think
that
the
fight
McGregor
is more
stuff surfacing is a cherry on top. And who knows? Maybe they've had great discussions and maybe they asked him to give it a little push. Who the heck knows? But he did more for that fight and did more promotion for that fight just by those comments than anyone could possibly do in the next 5 days. And now it's good to end on that note.
If Kevin Lee wins on Saturday, what are the chances he has a quick turnaround and defends the belt in Detroit, possibly against Khabib?
Well, the crime here, I mean, I wish this fight was happening in Detroit. It would be so perfect. It would feel that much more bigger in Detroit, especially considering the fact that not only is Kevin Lee the Motown phenom and has deep ties to that area, Ferguson is also from the great state of Michigan. I mean, it was just perfect for that state and for that card on December 2nd. But as Ali said, they needed a fight, et cetera, et cetera. Is it possible? Sure. If he's the next guy to fight Conor, then I don't think he makes that quick turnaround.
Yep.
As things stand right now, as far as 218 is concerned, the fight that they want to headline that card is Max Holloway versus Frankie Edgar. There was some delay because of the Holloway contract stuff. It sounds like they're trending in the right direction. Frankie is down. Also on that card, Ovry Ngannou announced last week. Cejudo Pettis reported last week. Gaethje Alvarez slated for that card as well. And so that card is in a pretty good spot as things stand right now. I want to see them do away with the 2-3 title fight cards. It just makes the next ones afterwards a little bare. I think that one title fight is enough per card, personally. So I don't think that he makes a quick turnaround if he wins. I think he waits for the Conor fight if he's able to pique his interest.
If he loses, maybe that's
possible.
Opportunity to hop on.
It's 2 months, yeah. If he loses, then I think that it's a greater possibility.
Question from James Moore: was Fabricio Werdum punished enough for his comments?
Oh man, it's hard for me to say. I mean, I don't really know what was the punishment. Just them putting out a statement, him putting out a statement. I'll say that Ali's statement was a lot more passionate. I know his was via video and Werdum's was via tweet, but I mean, these things are. I mean, what do we expect them to do? Like remove him from the card? That's not going to happen. Fine him?
No.
Like what I don't really know what we expected him to do. I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to say. I would hope by now that he stops using
that's the thing.
Those words. I would hope by now that he's learned his lesson. I know it was a heated exchange. I know it was a heated moment, but he has popped up on social media and he did it with Cormier. And I actually think I know that Werdum has some critics, and at times it's warranted. I think that he has good intentions for the most part, but I think he needs to. I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, it was a heat of the moment thing" when you're posting it on people's Instagram and you're saying it, a bunch of other times when it's not in the heat of the moment. So, the only thing that you can hope is that he understands that it is offensive, that it would bother people, that it rubs people the wrong way, and that he stops using it immediately.
Yeah, as long as this can be a lesson learned and that this stops, then the punishment will be fine. What is the possibility that Dana makes Whittaker? I think the premise being that Dana can do this, makes Whittaker defend the interim belt before Bisping GSP. Do we see Whittaker getting a different fight before?
I believe
Bisping
I said this
GSP?
last week with Luke Rockhold. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, all bets are off now. They need to fill slots. And I hope that when they sign this new TV deal, that they recognize that at least right now, and in any kind of era, that they just don't have the kind of roster to fill this many slots. And that creates a thin product. That creates at times a stale product. So, what if they're faced with a situation on December 30th where they desperately need a title fight? I wouldn't be shocked. Or on January, whenever that pay-per-view is. Right now, by the way, for December 30th, things are going well on the Cyborg home front, but not a done deal. So don't get me wrong, not a done deal, but things are going well. So that's a possibility. There you have a box checked. But who the hell knows what happens or when they need a title fight. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Not at all.
Did the UFC get it wrong by not having Ngannou face Stipe?
No, I don't think they did for two reasons. Stipe's not ready. Still has his contract issues that haven't been sorted. Ngannou could use another test. He hasn't fought since January. He was fighting an Arlovsky who's on the decline. And you know what? I've come around on the Overeem Stipe fight, or rematch, I should say, if need be. I'm not a huge fan of a challenger fighting a champion a second time if he lost the first time. But I rewatched that fight, and it was very competitive. And in fact, we forget over time that Stipe was in serious trouble. And so it is promotable, and Overeem's towards the end of his career, and he's going on this run now. I mean, the worst one that ever happened was when Bigfoot fought Kane for the second time. The first time was a non-title fight, but no one wanted to see that fight for the second time, and Kane just blew right by him. So I don't hate it. It's not ideal. Maybe Derek Lewis wins this fight and reasserts himself. A lot can happen in the heavyweight division. I mean, Anthony Johnson, you heard that from Ali. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
I mean, that's a name that is promotable, and that's a new figure in the mix. So a lot can happen. They just need to keep him active, keep him going. You can't have him wait over a year to fight Stipe. So I was okay with it. And what a fun fight. Holy smokes. Title picture be damned. Those two guys in the cage together. I hope that they reinforce that damn thing.
I'm glad you've come around.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you.
Matchup as well. And Overeem had Stipe in big trouble. I'm all for that. Speaking of Stipe, our next question. Do we know what the specifics of Stipe contract hangups are? Essentially, we're talking about contract issues, what are the issues? What are we looking at, and how long is this going to take to resolve?
I mean, he wasn't. I think that there's been dialogue, and I think that it could be moving in the right direction. I mean, he's been open about the fact that he didn't like the fact that the guys that he fought recently in title fights, Overeem, JDS, were making more than him. Especially the Overeem one, I think, really bothered him because that was in Cleveland, and he essentially sold that place out. I mean, it was special that the UFC was there for the first time, but he was the massive draw, right? And so I think he wants to be paid accordingly. And I think that a big issue for a lot of these champions are, especially the ones who can't sell as much without a belt, they don't want that drop-off. There's a massive drop-off, and Dominic Cruz referred to it, fighting for a belt or with the belt, defending the title, and then non-title fight. When you lose, having to work your way back up, there's a big drop. And I think that his is considerable, and he wants to, he wants to bridge that gap. And so I think that that's a big point of contention there as well. Hopefully by, early January, we can get him back out there because he's healthy, he's ready to go. And it's a shame to see him on the sidelines because he's on the verge of making history. I made a strong case. Tell me what you think about this. I made a strong case, and this may piss off Volkan Ozdemir, that DC versus Stipe Miocic is the fight to make because it allows the heavyweight division to form a queue. It allows the light heavyweight division to form a queue. And also you have the storyline of DC being the uncrowned champion at heavyweight, never lost a fight at heavyweight, only moved down to 205 because his friend was the king, Cain Velasquez. And also he gets to go in there against Stipe. He's always kind of been the underdog size-wise, but he gets to go in there against Stipe and try to stop him from breaking the record of becoming the all-time winner as far as heavyweight champions are concerned, most title defenses, and that's kind of in the honor of his friend. I love that matchup. And most importantly, it distances DC a little bit from the light heavyweight title because even he admitted it's a little bit awkward right now. So he gets to go in there as a light heavyweight champion, but he doesn't have to defend the light heavyweight champion. He goes in there, maybe beats Stipe, comes back as a dual champion. I feel like there's a lot of positives there. I feel like that's the fight.
Great storyline, but I don't know if I want a division hung up with two belts or somebody to hang up two divisions, rather, in Cormier. Maybe vacating one.
But there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot that needs to happen at light heavyweight. Why not just, you know what I mean? Like Gustafsson's coming back. Maybe have Gustafsson fight Ozdemir. I mean, what else is going on at 205 where you're not creating this massive queue with him going up? Same with heavyweight.
Yeah, maybe you know what? DC could be active enough to defend both, to be honest.
I mean, he's getting up there a little bit. And the one thing I don't like, I'll concede that the one aspect I don't like about this idea is that DC's coming off a knockout loss. And so him fighting a bigger guy like Stipe, who obviously is known for his knockouts, I think it's like 4 in a row in the first round, is a little troublesome. But just like the idea of the fight and a little excitement there with the big boys and DC getting a chance to distance himself from 205, I don't know. I really like that idea. And also like kind of doing it for his boy Cain. Cain not coming back anytime soon. It's great stuff. You can't script this stuff. It's fantastic.
You book it, I'm in.
Okay.
Many seem to think, we already got the answer to this question, but I'll just read it anyway. Scott Wiley, many seem to think that the fight between Cyborg and Holm is official. What do you know?
Not official.
You said that it's not official, but it is moving in the right direction.
It's not official, but it is moving in the right direction. And hopefully they get it done for December 30th. I mean, that's a fight, right? I mean, that's a headliner.
That is a headliner.
How many pay-per-views can that sell? Can that do close to 1 million? Are they big enough?
I don't know if it does 1 million.
Is she too removed from the Ronda fight, Holly?
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think Cyborg has name and continues to have a name. I think that's going to be tough to get close to 1 million. But that's a big fight. Does a win over Brian Ortega give Cub Swanson the winner of Holloway Edgar? Essentially, is Ortega and Swanson a #1 contender fight? How about Lamas? How do you see the featherweight division shaking out?
By the way, here's a just before I weigh in on that, here's a statement from the UFC courtesy of Kevin Iole regarding UFC 216. Quote, "Our focus right now is on supporting the community and those affected by Sunday evening's events. UFC 216 on Saturday, October 7th at T-Mobile Arena will proceed as scheduled until further notice." So there you have it. There's an update from the UFC about Saturday's event in Las Vegas. What was the question?
Featherweight division.
Yes.
We've just seen Ortega and Swanson made.
Yes.
Is that a number one contender fight? Are they next in line? How about Ricardo Lamas? What does that picture look like?
So there was a report that came out that Lamas was slated to fight Jose Aldo, and now there's a report that Cub Swanson is slated to fight Brian Ortega in Fresno in December. Am I the only one who wanted to see the Cub Aldo rematch before the Aldo Lamas rematch? Like, I feel like the fights to make were Cub Aldo Ortega Lamas. Am I crazy here? Lamas fought Aldo for the UFC title. Cub Aldo was in WC before Aldo was even WC champion, and it lasted 8 seconds. Like, that's the fight I want to see. I want to see what's changed since then. I feel like we just saw Aldo Lamas at UFC 169. Am I crazy?
Yeah. I mean, that's assuming... No. You're right. That's assuming that Aldo Lamas is the fight, though. Because I have no problem with Swanson and Ortega. I think that's a fine fight. But if it does end up being Aldo Lamas, I could pass on that one. Not one I would
just feel like
see again. Yeah, you can mix that pile up.
Configuration is off.
Yeah.
As far as the featherweight division is concerned, like, let's just see Holloway, Edgar, and then it's hard to then predict afterwards. I mean, those are the top guys. There's no doubt about it. But so much could happen.
If Lima beats McDonald, is he a top 5 welterweight?
It's a good question. What about Rory McDonald talking about wanting 3 belts, wanting 2 belts? I feel like this is a story that we heard. Like, a lot of the UFC guys come over to Bellator and say that they're going to win all these belts. Like, I want to see him get that first belt and then, cement that, legitimize the title a little bit, give it some panache. You know what I mean? If Douglas Lima beats Rory McDonald, is he a top 5 welterweight? I'd say yes. Why not? No? Beating Rory McDonald?
I might have to. Let's see the UFC's ranking, who we have in there. Then I would throw Ben Askren in that.
Ben Askren isn't fighting the kind of guys that Douglas Lima is fighting.
Ben Askren beat Douglas.
I know,
Lima.
but
like I would
A, how long ago, and B, he's not beating.
Doesn't matter how long ago. I'm not picking Douglas Lima over Ben Askren.
Okay, fine. I mean, yeah, but he's not beating Rory McDonald.
Robbie Lawler, Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia, Jorge Masvidal, Rafael Dos Anjos, and then Cerrone at 6, Condit at 7.
Man, Dos Anjos made a big jump.
That is a very big jump. Does Douglas jump into Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson, Robbie Lawler territory? You know what? There's a case for that.
There's a case.
Rory McDonald is enough of a name that's.
Oh yeah,
reasonable.
He's enough of a name.
And competed with enough of these guys at the top, including Woodley and Lawler, to make that case.
I love the fact that the UFC is having a media luncheon right now with DJ and Kevin Lee. It's such a different vibe than Ferguson. And maybe they should have gone with DJ and Ferguson. Maybe not.
I'd say that's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. I think there's a
I would
case
say
to
you're
be made.
crazy for saying Askren's not in there. You're like, Askren's not fighting the level of competition. He beat the guy we're talking about.
Yeah, but when?
But does it matter? Are you
schedule.
Picking, if you pick him, would I not take him now?
And by the way, much love to Askren. I said last week on The Beat that he has put out the blueprint how you should have in an MMA career. Take the most amount of money for the least amount of damage. I mean, it's been brilliant.
Sure.
It's been absolutely brilliant.
I would take Askren over a lot of these guys.
You beat Rory McDonald, that counts for something. In my opinion.
Askren never fighting in the UFC. That's going to be a shame.
I want to see Askren back in Bellator. I want to see Askren versus Rory. I want to see Askren versus Lima too. Forget the UFC at this point.
Maybe we change these plans. Let's
I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, but MMA retirements don't mean squat. They mean 0. They mean less than 0. They mean nothing.
Askren seems like the kind of guy who's going to stick to it.
I will agree with that. Askren seems like the guy. Look, as you said, he did it right. He made the money and didn't take the damage. So, but I think he could fight without taking the damage in Bellator too. The guy is, very rarely touched. Okay. Does Nick Diaz come back? Is Nate's fame keeping him relevant? Essentially, is all the talk of Nate Diaz keeping Nick Diaz in the conversation? Is he ever coming back?
I don't think so. As far as the second question is concerned, I think Nate has surpassed Nick in terms of popularity and fame. I think Nate is a bigger star. I think if Nate fought, Nate could headline a show right now and get close to $1 million, I think. Close. I don't know if he could get it. I think it depends on the fight. I said that about the Tony Ferguson fight. Like, it could get in the 800 range if promoted correctly. I don't know if Nick at this point has that same sort of connection. Look, Nate helped elevate Conor. Conor helped elevate Nate. They were great together. You know, they were magic together. And I suspect at some point they'll do it again for a third time. I don't know if it's next, but I suspect at some point they'll do it again for a third time. Nick doesn't have that partner at the moment. Him coming back is a big deal. But if you just follow Nick Diaz on social media, you get the impression that A, he's not training very much, and B, he doesn't have much of an interest in returning to MMA. He always had a love-hate relationship with the sport, with the idea of fighting another man. You know, sometimes he hated. The one rule I learned early on with Nick Diaz, never ask him if he's excited for a fight. He would go on a 5-minute diatribe talking about how much he hated that question, how much he hated that word, excited. He always just had this weird relationship with the sport. So I don't suspect that he fights anytime soon again. You know, who knows, needs the money, is enticed, great opportunity. He also has this issue with USADA that we have to see how that plays out and how, or if that hampers him. Would love to hear his thoughts on CBD now getting
That's right.
Off the WADA ban list.
Sure, we'll hear from Nate soon.
Yeah, so A, I think that Nate has surpassed him, and B, right now I don't foresee any return for Nick Diaz. And I wish that the welterweights would stop calling him out. I mean, at this point, I mean, like, come on. Can't just keep calling him out.
Chris Rinne, aforementioned,
Yes.
mentioned him earlier in the show. Why do the fighters continue to refer to themselves as employees and the UFC as bosses?
It's a great question. It's a fantastic question. The great Leslie Smith tweeted just a couple of days ago. Actually, it was on Instagram. She posted this this poll that was sent to the fighters by USADA. USADA is considering a new system to track the whereabouts of athletes. Under the system, you would need to file your whereabouts only once or twice a year, and you would allow the new system to track your location through a mobile phone application. If this system was adopted, how likely would you be to use the application? Very likely, likely, neutral, not likely, not at all likely, and she checks off not at all likely. This is an app that they're asking the fighters if they would be in favor of that would track your every move. And so one of the issues that has happened to the likes of Nick Diaz is you have to check in and tell them where you are every few weeks so that they can come and do random drug testing. It's a great end result, but the fighters don't like the fact that they're being asked to tell them where they are every step of the way. This app would follow you every step of the way, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. That, I mean, on top of everything, seems like an invasion of privacy. But if Vox Media, who I work for, asked to do that, I would say thanks, but no thanks. And like I'm exclusive to them. You know what I mean? This idea that the UFC fighters are independent contractors continues time after time, more often than not, to be less fact and more false, more fiction. I mean, just think about it this way. If my garage has a leak, I will hire someone, a plumber, some kind of contractor, if there needs to be like, you know, wall repairs, things like that. I will hire someone to come do the work, pay them, and then they leave. During that time, they can take 10 other jobs. During that time, they could show up wearing whatever they want. During that time, they don't have to tell me what they're doing on a Saturday afternoon, before the job, during the job, after the job. The UFC fighters don't have that ability. They can't go work for anyone else. They can't wear whatever they want. They can't go out there and do whatever they want without telling their quote unquote, you know, client or whatever you want to call them. I mean, that's their boss. They are treated as employees, but they don't get the benefits of being an employee. They don't get things like 401k and, you know, unlimited dental and health insurance and things like that for your family and all that. They don't get the benefits of you know, unemployment and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know why they do that, to answer your question, Chris. I don't know why they continue to, again, the day that will be the most interesting, in my opinion, will be when this new TV deal gets done. When this new TV deal gets done, and it will get done, of course. And by the way, who knows where it will be, right? I mean, does it end up on Fox? I'll say this, and I know Josh Gross has alluded to it, and I'm hearing the same thing. Amazon is going to be a player next year. There is interest on their side in getting in the MMA. I mean, they're doing a little bit of NFL. There was news that came out that they're going to be very aggressive, I think, in the sports world. Do they end up on an Amazon platform? Who knows? I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if it's with the UFC. Maybe it's with the PFL, who's looking for a TV home. Maybe it's a deal with another upstart promotion. I don't know. But the point is, once they sign this deal with any outlet, multiple outlets, if they continue to get 0%, I mean, then we could put aside, like, this is the time. Right now is the time. We have become more educated as a community. The fighters have become more educated. If you don't recognize the fact that you are leaving money on the table, 0% of the pie for the North American TV deal, for the United States TV deal, we could put aside all this talk of associations, unions, all that stuff and more. It's just not happening. But they continue to try to adopt policies where it feels like it's forcing the fighters' hands, like something like this. Like, to have an app that follows your every step and to continue to say that you're an independent contractor just doesn't, like, they don't mesh.
Okay.
It's not the same thing.
Two things. One, you addressed our next question, which was, I'll just read it out. Tunai Porto says, what approach should fighters take to get their fair share of the upcoming TV deal? Associations and unions don't seem to be working. There isn't a solution ahead, but they need to get a piece of that pie is what you're saying. But the question, let's pivot to that app for a second. If they were employees, are you still comfortable with that app? It's the app that's the issue. It has nothing to do with contract or...
Well, no, because the app, on top of the fact that they're not employees...
But if they were employees...
even if they were employees, I think that it's a little bit troublesome.
That's the thing.
But on top, like if they are employees and they want to bring in the app, that's a conversation that needs to be had. If they aren't employees, which they aren't, and they're trying to ask about this app,
sure,
that's an even bigger conversation. Like, it's a question if you're an employee, let alone, independent contractor, which is essentially what they are. But you're called an independent contractor, is what they should be, I should say. You're called one, but at the same time, you have to tell them where you are. You can't wear certain things.
Well,
that's a problem. That's not an independent contractor. You're not independent. You can't go work for anyone. You can't go fight at UFC 216 and then take a glory fight in November.
No, not without permission, which would mean that you're not really a contractor.
But when I hire someone to go fix my toilet, he could go work for someone else the next day.
No, don't disagree with you. You're 100% right. That said, on this app thing specifically, I think it's the app that's the problem. But I also think I understand the intention of it. The reason that we're having this conversation about Nick Diaz and checking in is because that's cumbersome. What they're trying to do, in a way that I don't know if this is the right solution, is take that responsibility and burden away from the athletes and say, look, you don't have to check in, but we'll be able to track that. Now, that's ultimately for everybody to weigh the pros and cons of and make that decision themselves. But yes, asking somebody who's supposed to be an independent contractor to enforce that is a different conversation. I think if we ultimately want the level of drug testing that we have, there are some sacrifices in privacy that have to be made. There's no way to simultaneously clean the sport and keep drug testing at the level it is. There will be some privacy issues that have to come from that. And we're seeing that now play out a lot.
In other sports, there's a period in which there's no random testing. I mean, there's things that have to... Here's the bigger question, or here's the bigger topic. Here's the bigger issue. The UFC fighters, for the most part, don't have much of a say in all of this, right? I mean,
or none, really.
Well, they'll throw out a survey like this. And that was actually Leslie Smith's point. At what point are we going to have a seat at the table, have a representative who says, all right, UFC says, hey, I want to drug test you randomly for 12 months, regardless of the time, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Memorial Day, doesn't matter. You have to tell me where you are. UFC fighter representative says, well, we don't really like that. How about 9 months? And how about, after a fight, you can do this. There's going to be a back and forth. It's not going to be clean. It's easy for us to say, drug test them whenever they want. These are men and women who, are fighting, and sometimes not for a lot, and who aren't getting the benefits of being an employee. So basically, when is the point going to come where someone is representing the fighters at the table and says, Reebok deal, let's talk about the cut that we're getting. Let's talk about how much we'll be making. TV deal, let's talk about how much we're getting out of this. USADA deal, let's talk about if this is, really in our best interest. or is this more of something that benefits you from a PR standpoint, etc.? You know what I mean?
Yep.
When is that going to happen? That to me is what everything boils down to.
And I think,
when are they going to have a say in these talks?
Yeah, and even if it's contractor or not contractor, that needs to happen. Somebody needs to be able to speak on their behalf.
By the way, courtesy of Adam Hill, speaking of Twitter, he just tweeted that UFC President Dana White tells me the organization will donate $1 million to the families of those affected by the tragedy in Las Vegas last night. So well done, UFC. Well done, Dana White. Very nice to hear that.
2 quick questions before we get to our last one that are not on the screen. People's main event for UFC 216, asked by UFC 480 Cris. What's the people's main event?
I lean towards Ferguson Lee, but I know people don't like when that's the main event. Sometimes it's just a no-brainer. Otherwise, I think Derek Lewis is the people. I mean, Derek Lewis is the man who went out there and helped the people of Houston.
I like that.
That is a man of the people. So I'll go with Derek Lewis for
both of those are the wrong answer because the answer is whatever the people choose.
No, that's not true. You ask me, I tell you.
Had this question a lot. I'll address it. When are you going to be on the MMA beat? I'm not. I have a very packed work schedule. Doesn't afford me to do that. But you get great people like Jeff, Chuck, Luke, Ariel, Danny Segura. You're in good hands.
You asked to be out.
I'm not. Listen, I just said.
Okay.
I have a packed work schedule. I'm not advocating for it. I cannot do it.
Just for the record.
I do not have the capacity on Thursdays to do it. But I appreciate people asking. Let's go to this last question here.
Okay, perfect.
Just found this on Google. What was this encounter like?
Great. Why do you have to end on this?
What did you guys talk about?
Well, for those that aren't watching, that is a photo of me back in 2006 with Orenthal James Simpson. I was in Dallas. I was working for a production company. So here's the story. I was in Dallas working for a production company, and I was working for a production company who was contracted by SpikeTV.com to work on a show, I kid you not, called Spike's Sexiest Bartenders. And my job was to go to these random cities and find said bartenders. I kid you not. And so I'm in Dallas, and I see OJ Simpson, 2006, before his arrest in Las Vegas, of course, post-trial in California, in the lobby, and I follow him upstairs. I was weirdly fascinated by that whole trial, weirdly fascinated by all things OJ Simpson. And so I was just kind of fascinated by the fact that he was there. We go up, and there's like a sky top bar, and he's there with, I think, 2 other guys and 2 women, and we end up sitting right next to him. And it occurs to me, I learn that OJ is there. The 2 women are ladies of the night. And he is complaining to me that he does not want to be there and that he wants to leave. And he's just like there complaining. And it's just kind of surreal that it's OJ. And like, I don't really know what to make of all of this. And at some point in all of this, I asked him for a photo. I'm not a journalist at the time. I'm just a schmuck production assistant guy going to find quote unquote sexy bartenders. As you can kind of see on my face, there's like a bit of like a, oh my God, I can't believe I'm standing next to OJ with his massive hand on my shoulder.
Oh my God, his hand is huge.
His hand is just gigantic. And as you can see, he's like a little bit, disheveled and kind of, winding down from a long day, clearly. And at some point he says, I'm going to go to the bathroom, gets up, goes to the bathroom, I guess, and never comes back. And we're kind of left there with his crew.
So that's a great story.
Yeah.
I love that story about the photo. Now, the question is, what is the end result of that sexy bartender hunt?
Oh, man. I mean, I don't know if it's online anymore, but we found some winners, and they hosted a thing, and I was the host, and it was kind of a big deal. It was a lot of fun, actually. I met some cool people. In fact, when I went to work for Spike TV in 2007, and this is kind of crazy that we're talking about this because I ended up leaving Spike TV and I started my website in October of 2007. October 19th of 2007 is going to be the 10-year anniversary of starting that jerrypark.com website, which helped start my MMA career. They had the finals, and we saw Vanderlei Silva at a nightclub, and that was kind of crazy. And I was with some of the winners. It was just a whole bizarre other time in my life. One day I'll tell you all about those crazy days. It was weird. Like, they sent me out, then I had to kind of pick everyone myself and find the finalists. It was just so bizarre. And then at the end of every search, one second. At the end of every search, we had these parties at a bar. It was, I think, sponsored by Bud Light or Coors Light. I think it was Coors Light. And I hosted them in front of these people, and it was very strange because I wasn't really used to doing that sort of thing. Met some fun people along the way. So I did that job working for this production company called K2 Pictures. And then they were going to do a second one, but I ended up going to work at Spike TV. And then I ended up, I was at Spike TV for like 3 days. And then I went to go work at a UFC event for Spike TV in the truck. It was an event headlined by Kenny Florian versus Dean Thomas. And I was in the truck, and I was so bored because we did absolutely nothing. And I remember talking to someone in the production, on the production team, and saying, like, what exactly do we do here? Like, what is the point of us being here? And the UFC did all the production. They controlled everything. And they're like, we just kind of, make sure that nothing's gone awry, but we don't really do much. And then so when I came back to New York on that Monday, I went into the office of the head man at Spike and told him essentially that it was time for me to go, that I didn't like the job, that it was not interesting to me, and that I had to go pursue some other dreams and aspirations. He told me it was the biggest mistake of my life. He told me that I was going to regret this forever, that I was being unprofessional, et cetera, et cetera. And they made me stick around for a month until they found someone to replace me, because I just started a week ago. And that's when I decided to start my own website, jerrypark.com, start interviewing fighters. I used to send out around 30 to 40 MySpace messages a day to different fighters. If I got 2 to 3 back, great. I was posting an interview every single morning at 8 a.m. All I wanted to do was post one, get the word out there, let people know how I can interview people. And that just kind of started it all. I gave myself 6 months from October 19th. Kurt Angle was my first interview. It just was arrested for a DUI, and up until April 1st. And if I didn't get a job by April 1st, I was going to go back to TV production. And thankfully, March 28th, 3 days before my deadline, on my wife's birthday, my future wife's birthday, we got engaged in the midst of all that. In December, I ended up getting an offer from MMA Rated. And it's kind of crazy how all this is coming together on this show, because we showed a clip from MMA Rated. We showed the OJ thing as part. I mean, that's just kind of weird.
Walk down memory lane.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, the OJ thing has nothing to do with all of that, but it just kind of put me back in that place. It was very surreal. And of course, he was released on Saturday, late Saturday, midnight in Las Vegas, right? In Nevada.
Yep.
And he actually surfaced. He's a strange guy. What a strange guy. Did you see that clip of him in the car? I
did, yeah. I mean, his story from start to finish has just been...
Did you see the 30 for 30s?
Of course, yeah.
Those were incredible. Guy we play basketball with.
That's right. Aaron. Shout out to Aaron Cohen. That's it for the questions. Although...
Give a call there. Give
again?
a ring. Yeah. Just before we go, for 2 minutes... Yes, someone on Twitter says, Edwin Cam, I love all the stories involving Ariel Helwani with sexy bartenders, Playboy Mansion, and Girl Collection. You guys have no idea. There's many layers here. Many, many layers to me. We have only scratched the surface, my friends. Before we go, I reached out to Chris Weidman to get his thoughts on Tom Petty. As we reported via TMZ just moments ago, he has not passed, according to TMZ. He is on life support, but I know he's a big part. I was talking about the symbolism of the walkouts and everything, so I just wanted to quickly have Chris on. to ask him about this, and he is kind enough to join us now for just a couple of minutes. We have tracked him down. Cris, are you there?
Yo, what's up, Ariel?
Hey, Cris, how are you?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's been a tough day. There's so much going on in the world, so much to be sad about, and of course, with what's happened in Las Vegas, and I know you fought there many times, and you have great memories from Las Vegas. And then we get the news about Tom Petty, and initially there was a report, I think, from the LA Times that he had passed, but now TMZ is saying he's on life support, but it's not looking good. And so, of course, I just thought of you and wanted to have you on to essentially ask you why that song means so much to you, and why he means so much to you, and you know, your thoughts on him. And I reached out to you when I heard that he had passed, and now we got this news that, you know, there's some erroneous report, but happy to have you on anyway, just to talk about the song and you know, why it represents you so well.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because I didn't know that he's on life support now. I just heard recently that he passed away too. My cousin had texted me. So that's good news that he hasn't passed. Hopefully he could fight through this. But his song, man, it was the perfect picking for me because it was before my Anderson Silva fight, the first one, and I felt like the world was pretty much against me. You know, I had everybody doubting me, and I was going against the greatest of all time, a guy who was undefeated, and a guy who people really didn't think could be beat, especially by a guy who was 9-0. So I thought it was just a very fitting song, the "Won't Back Down" theme. You know, you back at the gates of hell, and you won't back down. And that's kind of I just felt like it was the perfect thing. And then since then, it's kind of been Tom Petty and "Won't Back Down" kind of became like synonymous with me. Like anytime a song would come on in somebody's car, I would get a tweet. You know, just thinking of you. I just heard Tom Petty and you know, "Won't Back Down" in the car, and I love that walkout song. And yeah, so it's just it's been really cool. A lot of his songs are really cool. And then if you got to know him, I never got to know him on a personal level, but just listen to some of his interviews. He's just a very quiet guy, and especially being such a rock star. You know, he's not like all flamboyant and loud and boisterous. He's very laid back, almost like, you know, one of my favorite like one-liners or quotes is "walk quietly but carry a big stick," and he's definitely one of those guys. And so I respect him a lot, and he's had a tremendous career. And I'm happy that I was able to have his, you know, that song to walk out to.
Were you a big Tom Petty fan growing up? How did you come across the song?
I wasn't like a huge fan of much, like, as far as music. I wasn't like a big music listener. I mean, I'd listen to whatever was on the radio, but I came across a song. I was trying to figure out a walkout song, and I came across Tom Petty's song. At the time, I was trying to learn how to play guitar, so I started kind of getting into like that style of rock. And so I kind of came across that Tom Petty song, and I just thought it was a perfect fit.
I love it. I've said to you before that I think it's one of the best walkouts in the sport. I've said it on the show. It always seems to represent, like, it's funny because you're going into the Anderson fight and it's perfect, but even in the rematch, it's perfect because, like, people were doubting you and people didn't think that it was a legit win and that he was clowning around. And, like, on Long Island, I got chills. I was not in the arena for a second that night, but I made a point just to watch the walkout, and then I went back to watch it on television because I think it's a better vantage point. Like, you going in there on a 3-fight losing streak and everyone thinking that you're done. Yeah. I won't back down. It fits so many different phases of your career, so many different chapters. Yeah. I hope you never change it.
I always feel like my back's against the wall, and I think it does work. It works great with my career. I don't think I'll ever stop using it. So yeah, I think no matter what fight it was, it felt good. It gave me chills every single time, and the second it stopped giving me chills, is I would have been done with it, and it never stopped. So that's why I continue to use it even after the losses. Usually, a lot of people will change their walkout song after suffering a loss, but I stuck with it, because it still gave me this like a really good feel-good energy, but also kind of amped me up at the same time. To just go out there and not back down, just give my best and don't take a step backwards.
after Hurricane Sandy. I mean, you've been through so much. You represent that song beautifully. So I thought of you when I saw the news, and we're all hoping and praying that he can pull through this. That statement that came out doesn't seem entirely positive at this point, but you know, it's better than the initial news that we got. Appreciate. Hey, by the way, Cris, since I have you, any news? What do you got? I know the cast came off. What do you got? Any good news that we can end the day on?
No good news yet. I'm still healing up. The hand is still not where I need it to be. So I'm going to the doctor tomorrow to get it checked out again. But it's going to be a couple, maybe another few weeks actually till I'm able to train again. And then once I'm able to train, I'll get a fight booked. But I'm not going to book any fight until my hand feels 100%. So when I'm in training camp, there's no, I don't want any issues.
Right. So safe to say, probably taking the rest of the year off, right?
Not safe to say. We'll see.
Okay.
It depends on.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully it heals up tomorrow, you know, and it's better, and then I'll get cleared and get the training. But right now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But hopefully, it does.
I see you doing things for MSG, blowing up all over the place. I mean, you're doing all kinds of great things, mainstream stuff, sports talk, all that.
Yeah, man, it's life is good. I don't know. I don't know how it's happening, but I guess, you know, I'm surrounded by good people.
My wife just discovered Instagram stories, and she was enthralled by your Japanese fighting fish on Saturday. She loved every second of it. Your play-by-play?
Are you trying to get me in trouble with animal rights activists?
No, I didn't know that was even a thing. But we were captivated. It was a slow build. You put them together, and then one attacked the other, and then you went back. I didn't even know that was an actual thing. I didn't know that you can actually have fish like that and had to be separated. It was great. Your stories are always very entertaining.
You're not supposed to put them together, but I was cleaning the water out of the tank, and I'm like, you know what? These fish have been stuck in one little, you know, like they have a tank, and it's a little tiny tank, and it's split in half, and they're just gonna live the rest of their lives just swimming in a circle with no excitement and never really being able to spread their wings. And those fish, when they get like angry and they want to, you know, intimidate the other fish, they like spread real wide and their gills open up, and they look really pretty. And I guess what they're trying to do is intimidate the other fish. And I was like, let me give them some excitement. And I wasn't going to let them kill each other, but a couple bites, it wasn't going to kill anybody, and give them something to think about for the next for the rest of their life.
Yes, well done. I have to say, it's been a depressing day, a sad day. I'm happy to end the day with you, Cris. It's great to hear your voice.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, it's been a terrible day, and I'm happy to do. I kind of feel like I'm just starting my day right now, but I've been engulfed in all the news all day. But anyway, it's nice to talk to you.
All right, thank you, Cris. Appreciate the minutes here on the show. Appreciate the time, and get well soon. Keep us posted on the hand as well, and please leave the fish alone. All right, they didn't do anything to you.
I got it, buddy.
All right, thank you, Cris. There he is, Cris Weidman. Right. Never backing down. Great to hear his thoughts on Tom Petty. Certainly wish Tom well. And of course, one last time, wish everyone in Las Vegas very well. Have been sort of shielded from all the updates and news. Haven't really seen much since we were doing the show, and we'll check back in with that. And it sounds like 216 is still a go. So it sounds like I'm headed to Las Vegas, and so that should be a little, I don't know. I'm a little uneasy, but I'm sure it's going to be great to see Las Vegas coming together, and I'm looking forward to going there. As always, second home. You can hit the music. That was good. Thank you. I love Las Vegas. Not a problem. I love Las Vegas. I really do. I was actually just talking to someone about going to Las Vegas. Someone, you know, anytime you tell someone about the fact that you have to go to Las Vegas a lot for work, they'll have two reactions. They'll either say, "Oh, that's great. You get to gamble, you get to party," and obviously that's not the case. The other reaction is, "Oh, I hate Vegas. I can't stay there for, less than 24 hours. Oh, it's a killer." Or, I can't be there for 2 days or a weekend. It's so draining. I always say, I always love going to Las Vegas. It's always very exciting. It's full of life. It's very familiar. The people who work there I mean, of course, they're working in like the service industry, the hotels, people like that. They're always great. It's always a pleasure. I mean, all my experiences in Las Vegas have always been fantastic. And staying at the Mandalay Bay, I've stayed there many a time, always has been fantastic. And so I look forward to going back to Las Vegas. And I hope that everyone's spirit is doing well and will get better and we'll get through this. And again, hopefully we can have that conversation more about trying to make a better place for our children, for America, for everyone who comes in this country, a safer place, a happier place, a kinder place, a more loving place. Today is not a day that we want to experience again. I hope that we don't have to do so anytime soon again. Thinking about everyone who has been affected by this. Appreciate everyone who stopped by today. Appreciate all our guests. Thank you very much to everyone who joined us. Dominic Cruz, Alistair Overeem, Mackenzie Dern, Sapo Natal, Volkan Ozdemir, Andrea Lee, Ali Abdelaziz, Mackenzie Dern. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Frank Shamrock. Peace. I'm out here. Back next week, same time and place. We'll talk to you then.